a little distant, like you're not as loud as usual.
Oh, okay. I'll try to speak up a little bit louder. I did change my phone service because AT&T was very expensive, and so I changed my service. But I hope my phone is still working.
I just pushed the button on this phone. They have a button you can push about 4 or 5 times, and it ups the volume and then drops it down. So I just pushed it, and you're a lot better right now. So, okay. Anything on your end that you have any questions about? Anything we've discussed? Anything you wanted to bring up for the start of this call?
I have written down on my things to do that I need to call Jeff Rosen and Jennifer Schaefer. So I still have not got a chance to do that, but I have it written down on my things to do that I need to call both of those individuals about your case.
Okay.
And also, Carol Asher and Ken Massat are collecting support letters for you and writing letters to your lawyer. So that we've put out we've put out the word to various people to participate in that, and I believe a few people have participated. So I hope your lawyer is getting a few letters.
Yeah, he no doubt is. I haven't been able to reach him. I'm going to try again tomorrow if I get a chance to get on the phone. Lawyers are often in court and doing other things too, but he's a very diligent lawyer and a very good one. I mean, he's one of the few I've ever had that I'm very happy with. He does know what he's doing, and we differed on anything, and I defer to his judgment. He always seems to have been in the right, so I have a lot of confidence in him. As far as letters, Ken has sent me copies of probably 6 or 8 now that have been sent to him, and another friend or two have sent me directly that probably didn't get the message to send to him. So we probably only got about 10 so far. But here's the thing I want to emphasize, and I don't mean to cause any extra work for anybody having to go back over where we've already traipsed on this issue, but so many people, despite my form letter, are not getting the gist of it. They're writing these wonderful letters. I have nothing but thanks for their and appreciation for everybody's really nice compliments about my background and me and the stuff. They know it was self-defense and this and that, but a lot of them are not saying anything about this shocks my conscience. I want to reiterate again that the only purpose for this letter, the sole purpose, and it's the only time I've ever had a letter like this that has to be written, is to deal with the fact that it shocks the conscience. Now, they can use a different term, unbelievable, beyond belief, unreal, shocking, whatever, but it should actually still say shocks the conscience. I've had a few people think, well, that poses an objection because the judge is going to think these are kind of staged letters if they all say the same thing. No, the purpose this time is for exactly that, because that state Supreme Court ruling that just came down said that in order for me to get relief on this, my 35 years in prison, I mean, they weren't talking about me, but to apply what they said, my 35 years in prison has to shock the conscience. And judges lose sight of this stuff. So my whole objective has been on this particular project is if that judge is flooded with anywhere from, 25 or 50 or 100 or 500 letters or even 1,000 from people off my Facebook. It could even be from strangers. People don't know anything about me that just feel, you know what? Nobody should do 35 years in prison unless they did something like Manson was accused of and supposedly did. So if it shocks their conscience, if even a stranger doesn't know anything about me, that's fine. We need a judge to see a cross-section of the society in our country and in our state says that this is conscience shocking that I've done 35 years in prison. Now, those who do know about my facts, who know it was self-defense, who know other circumstances, know I have no crime history whatsoever, know I was upstanding member of society and all the different achievements and things I did, that's all fine. But all of those things can be said in one short sentence and then move on to the next thing. In light of this background and this self-defense and this, and that, and the other, this is conscience shocking that he's been in prison this many years, and especially from what we understand in light of the fact that nobody else with his sentence and circumstances have. And that's it. And the shorter, in this instance, the shorter, the better. There's been times when it's required a page or page and a half letter to say all these, important things, but this is not that time. I think a judge will get distracted and feel like these are irrelevant if they go off into all that other stuff. Ideally, one paragraph, a third of a page long, or less than half a page long, would do the trick easily. And the more we have of those types, then we will have achieved my purpose.
You know, as you were talking, I went back and double-checked the letter that I wrote myself, and I do have that phrase in there, so I feel good. Mine was about 1 page, and it basically says, "It is shocking to my conscience that Mr. Lazor has spent 35 years of imprisonment for a case of self-defense." And I go on and say a few other things, but I'm glad that I do have that phrase in there, "shocking to my conscience." So, okay, very good.
That's right. I recall that. Yours, because I got that letter, yours does, and Ken Massat says it. There is one other one that said it's shocking. It's from my friend Greg Ciola, a Christian man.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And one or two said something like unbelievable injustice. That gets kind of close. But, yeah, the shorter we can keep them to that small paragraph saying this is conscience shocking, that's all I'm trying to get this judge to hear from however many people we can get in. Quantity is the key on this particular issue, because it's a very unique situation that I'm in.
Gotcha. Makes complete sense to me.
So, thank you so much for that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. One quick question. Do we have like a date that we should be shooting for? Is there like a time limit, or is it just?
Well, I hate to say it because it might turn some people away and think it's too late, but our deadline is actually tomorrow.
Okay.
So Eric has probably incorporated what letters he's got into this that is going to be either sent in tomorrow or has already been sent in probably today or even yesterday. But I knew from the start that I wouldn't even be able to reach all the people that I want to reach, because I got people who have no email, only have addresses, and I'm waiting for a form letter because I can't write out that many letters. I'm waiting for a form letter that Ken sent me 50 of so that I can send it out to each of them quickly. And so I knew from the start that there'd be people that I wouldn't reach in time for that May 2 deadline. So as for those, I feel like as long as we've opened the door, if Eric has, assuming he's incorporated this into his last briefing that's due tomorrow, we've opened the door, and I believe we can do what's called a supplemental brief. I've done it many times, and Eric has even done 1 or 2 on this case already. So if we open the door and we get a whole bunch more, especially if it's a huge quantity that says it's conscience shocking, it sticks right to that simple point, keeps it very concise, I believe we can go in a supplemental and send all the rest in within, I'd say should have them in within 2 weeks, because we don't know if that judge intends to make a ruling on this and wrap this case up in 2 weeks or 2 months. By law, he's got 2 months to do it, and can also take an additional 30-day extension of time on that, so he has 90 days if he takes that extension. But for all we know, he may wrap it up in a couple of weeks. I really don't think he's going to do it that quick or any quicker than that, but it could be.
Okay.
So for that reason, I'd like to have the stuff into Eric within about a week.
Okay, very, very good.
Okay. Yeah, and please interrupt, whatever, anytime, because I want to, fulfill all the questions that you have, because you're kind of more like the objective minds of anybody out there that may be listening to us online, and you may be, filling in and answering some questions that they have, or posing some questions that they have that I can answer. So, by all means, anytime. I have in front of me a list of a whole bunch of different things that I want to try to cover a little bit at a time as I'm making these calls. By the way, you mentioned Jennifer Schaefer. Her name is actually pronounced Schaffer, just so you know when you actually reach her.
Okay.
It's pronounced Schaffer, not Schaefer, okay?
Got it.
Last time, okay, well, since you're going to try to reach her, let me talk more about the parole board corruption and all the problems. One is that they've come out, I mentioned either my last call or second to last call, that they came out with this procedure of requiring us to have their psychologists that they force on us to do psych reports in order for us to get out of here. And as long as I keep saying, this is a self-defense case, and no, I'm not going to capitulate. I mean, I say it a lot nicer than this and more diplomatically, and I don't even say it directly, but I refuse to capitulate and say something that's untrue, i.e., I had malice and I intentionally murdered this guy. That's what they want to hear from me, but yet there's a penal code section 5011 California Penal Code that they always cite in the parole board saying we can't hold it against you if you refuse to admit guilt to the crime. Well, in my case, it's even more in my favor because everybody knows I admitted right from the start that I shot the guy. I mean, I called the police to save him and said I shot him right there on the phone. So there's never been a question or debate about that. So it should even be more in my favor, that the only issue is, well, did I have malice like the jury voted on, even though, the reasons they voted on that is they weren't even given the manslaughter instructions or the standard self-defense instruction. So they have these psychs that are mercenaries. They're evil, they're malicious, they're really nice to the people who basically grovel before them and worship them. And that's the same thing with the parole panels I've been finding. They'll be very nice and very kind, and they're cutting them all loose. But because I'm very polite to them, I'm very respectful, but because I won't grovel before them and say I was a terrible person all my life and now you have, worship, you have rehabilitated me. So now I'm ready to go home, and those are guys who are letting go home. It's all backwards. It's 180 degrees on its head. It should be just the opposite. I should have been the first guy, or one of the first guys out the door with other guys that are innocent.
Well, and if I could interject here just a bit, I also, believe it or not, talked to and advocate for another gentleman that was involved in a self-defense shooting in 1983. He also has been in prison 35 years. That's a hard word for me to say, much less I can't imagine how hard it's been for you to live it for 35 years. But I believe he's innocent. I believe it was self-defense. I believe he did not murder anybody. I'm not even sure that his gun was ever proved to even used, in the actual shooting that did occur. I think it was another man that did the shooting that actually hit the gentleman that died. But in any event, he tells me that when he goes before the parole board, that he doesn't show remorse because he doesn't feel like he was guilty. He doesn't feel like he did anything, and he's maintained his innocence. And because he does not show remorse, he says they always railroad him, and they just are totally against it.
Your call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So this idea of showing remorse seems to be a tremendously important thing for the parole board. But if you're not guilty, how can you show remorse?
Well, here's the way you could deal with that in self-defense, and here's the way I deal with it. Because I've got through their remorse gateway completely up until this last time, they tried to re-invoke that issue again, that, we think maybe what you just said negates the fact that you have remorse that we've acknowledged all these years. But let me address that real quickly. First of all, is he in California?
No, I'll find out where he is, but he's not in California, no.
Okay, well, no, I just wondered because there's not another case in California that we know of. And, of course, our research can't be 100% complete, but we've surely, been studying this and trying every way that we can to determine if there are other people in my situation here in California, and there just aren't from what we can find. So, anyway, I was just curious if he's California. If he was, I would ask, well, does he have any crime background? Was there some kind of criminal activity involved in what he was doing?
It was Minnesota, and he's in Minnesota prison. The crime took place in Medina, North Dakota. It was a very, very famous shooting. It was the Gordon Call shooting. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
You're talking about Yori. I know Yori.
Not Yori. It was a Scott Fall. Yes, Scott Fall. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I know of Scott Fall, and I know of Yori is what I should say, because I know Yori's mother as a result of his case. Her and I got in contact real early on, like in the early 1980s, and we stayed in touch for several years. So I'm aware of that case, and I understand he didn't do a thing.
No.
Nor did Yori, as far as I know.
Amen.
They were victims.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
But here's the thing with the parole board is they keep, until I will, grovel before them, and apparently these psychs are going to give me bad reports, and yet we've hired outside independent psychs, and one Christian guy did one for free, and I come up with, of course, excellent, completely mentally clear, everything fine. I did want to say one thing about remorse. If you can say, at least in California, honestly say, I feel really bad.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
That these people died and I was involved in it, even though I wasn't a shooter or I wasn't somebody that intentionally killed them. I feel terrible about it. That is a form of remorse. I told them the truth about that, and that's got me through the California gateway of that remorse business for all these years.
That's very interesting and could be very useful. I'll make sure that certain people hear that. But thank you for that, and our prayers are with you, Lazor.
Thank you. This is going to cut us right about now, so blessings to you too, and my prayers are with you. Thank you.
Okay, God bless. Bye-bye. Have a great day.